This year's theme for Hispanic Heritage is Changemakers, past, present, and future. And today, we will have an opportunity to hear 3 students tell why they think a particular person is a change maker within the Hispanic culture. So I can hardly wait for that. At this time, I would like to introduce Dr. Leon Palumbo, professor in the Department of World Languages, who is our MC for this morning and who is going to tell us about our keynote speaker and also the students. Dr. Palumbo.
Thank you, Professor Hanasank, for the welcoming remarks. Good morning to all of you, faculty, students, and guests. Professor Misa and I would like to welcome you once again to the Department of World Languages and English and Communications Creative Writing Contest Awards event in celebration of Hispanic Heritage Month. Bienvenidos. I am going to switch around a little bit of gears here and tell you a little bit about the students that are presenting. Our guest speaker, as Professor Hanasank said, is on his way. So before I introduce him, our entries this year, so our students approach the Changemakers topic in unique ways. Remember, our topic was Hispanic Changemakers, past, present, and future. So today you're going to be hearing through the winning entries, you're going to hear the voice of a grandfather who is a symbol of a heroic Cuban past, the voice of the present through the achievements of the first Latina serving as an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court, and a child activist carrying a future promise for undocumented immigrants. So those are our 3 voices, our past, present, and future that you're going to be hearing today. I'm going to go ahead and start talking to you a little bit about our guest speaker. Like I said, he'll be coming in shortly. So our guest speaker today is Mr. Yvonne Taylor, and he is a bilingual journalist working as a Spanish language news anchor and reporter for Univisión Channel 23 in Miami. Yvonne Taylor received his bachelor's degree in mass communications and journalism from FIU, and he earned his associate in arts degree from Miami Dade College. He is a journalist with 18 years of experience in TV. He was born in Nicaragua, but he has lived in the South Florida area for most of his life. His TV career started in Miami as a reporter. After that, he was hired as an anchor reporter in the New York market, where he worked for 3 years. In 2014, he relocated to Houston, Texas, where he was given the opportunity to become a Network News National Correspondent. He came back to his hometown in 2016, joining Univisión-Noticias 23 as a weekend anchor and an investigative reporter. He comes to Univisión Miami with an array of experiences from the US and abroad. His reporting assignments have included presidential elections in Latin America and traveling to Havana to cover the diplomatic relations between US and Cuba. In addition, Yvonne was also one of the few journalists allowed to cover the historic visit of Pope Francis to the island. Most recently, he covered the path and destruction caused by Hurricane Michael in Florida and Maria in Puerto Rico, showing in both cases the desperation and limitations endured by the people. Mr. Taylor's tenacity as a journalist is evidenced by his numerous accolades and most memorable television reports. He has been the recipient of 13 Emmy Awards. Mr. Taylor, please. Of 13 Emmy Awards, both regional and national, for his excellence in journalism throughout his career. Among these, Mr. Taylor received 1 national Emmy for his special coverage, Francisco en America, which highlighted Pope Francis's visit to Cuba. His most recent one last year, Fuego bajo la piel, Fire Under the Skin, included a two-part story about young firefighters diagnosed with cancer in the line of duty. However, Mr. Taylor considers one of his most valued Emmys his report, Los Niños del Basurero, the Garbage Dumps Children, focusing on the harsh reality of Latin American children digging through landfills in order to find recyclable items to sell and make money. He remembers focusing on a child from his homeland, Nicaragua, who dreamed about going to school but could not do it because of lack of money. These are just a few examples of the many awards Mr. Taylor received for his excellent investigative reports. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Yvonne Taylor.
Sometimes, for those of us who work in the media, I have to say that being tied up to like a microphone here is like, it's like just being in front of the camera and that we cannot move around. So first of all, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to Miami Dade College for inviting me to be here. Thank you to Leon for asking me to be here, to Professor Mais, to the president of Miami Dade College. I must say I am very grateful to Miami Dade because back in the early 90s, this is the institution that I went to, that I attended. This is what I could afford at the time. I would have loved to have gone to a university. I did not have the grades that a university would be asking for me to be able to enter. So Miami Dade College did the job. And I will always be grateful because I remember back then in the 90s, when I started, I thought that I wanted to go to school for international relations. And I actually ended up going to school for broadcast journalism. And it was because of a class, I think it was called Human Development, in which you have to state some of the things that you like and some of the things that you don't like, some of the things where you think you can excel and some of the things where you think you cannot. And that helped me actually make up my mind and come up to terms with the fact that I wanted to go pursue broadcast journalism, because I always felt like I want to be there when history is happening, and I want to be the guy who's telling everybody what I saw and how will it affect us. And I'm thankful to this institution for that reason. From here, I went to FIU, where I finally graduated. I ended up moving. I moved to New Jersey, where I lived 3 years. I also lived in Texas, in Houston, where I lived for 16 months until one day I got called in and I was told that my mom was sick, and I decided to come back to South Florida. And sometimes you will run into that in life, that family will pull you, and they will either bring you back to where you took off, or they will make you go somewhere else. For now, I want to say that because we are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month, and to me, Hispanic Heritage Month has a lot to do, has huge ties with my family, has huge ties with South Florida. And that's the reason why I'm here, and I am so happy and so grateful. So each of us have our very own story, whether you're Hispanic, African American, Anglo, we have the reason that moves us and that makes us pursue what we really truly want. We have our very own inspiration, someone who came either in our lives or who came to the US, and we looked at that person and taught us, I want to do that. I want to be the same. I also want to follow the story that he or she has. Well, that's why they invited me here to talk about Hispanic Changemaker, which is what in Spanish we call Hispanos Emprendedores. For those of you who don't speak Spanish, it's fine, it's okay. The word in English is Hispanic Changemaker. And I also want to invite African Americans to feel identified with this, because this is what, when we talk about this, we're looking for like a Martin Luther King, that we think that can make a difference. You know, like all these figures in our history that we feel like they made a difference. I'm a huge admirer of Oprah Winfrey. I mean, a huge admirer. I think this is a woman that I look at and I don't think of color, because I will never forget when Oprah Winfrey said, if you want to do something in life, make sure you do what you like, and you will make money and you will be happy. And I think that's a motto that can be applied to no matter what nationality, heritage, or skin color you are. It's the truth. That's the reason why I am doing what I am doing, and I feel lucky. Let's go back to what we were talking about. So I had a couple of people that were inspirations in my life. One of them was my dad. My dad came to the US in the late 80s. At the time, he was 46 years old. I remember my dad is an agronomist who went to Ohio State University, but he came here and he had nothing. He started working at a nursery of plants. And I remember seeing my father coming home and one day lifting up his foot and there was a hole in the shoe. And he could not afford at the time to buy a new pair of shoes. So we had to go to like Payless and buy sneakers and look for whatever was on sale. That's at the time when he was 46 years old. Today he's 79 years old. But I remember my father not necessarily complaining. And when he was hired to work at that place, and he saw how everything is going at a nursery, he said, I'm gonna have my very own nursery one day. So 2 years later, instead of coming home and sitting down to have dinner with us or going into the couch and watch TV, he would leave his job at 5 p.m. and would go and work at his own nursery, and he would be there until 9 or 10 p.m. every day. He did it consecutively for basically 6 days a week, 2 years. Fast forward to the time when my father is 51, he owned 20 acres of land, he had his own business, and he had, at the time, hired 17 people. And he went along. The 90s were a great time for investing, for planting houses, because that's when we had the huge boom in Miami-Dade County, and he did really well. I knew I did not want to work into nursery, but I thought that he was a great example to follow. In my mind, he was a Hispanic Changemaker, because he taught me that in this country, if you work hard, you can actually achieve what you want. The other person that I think is a Hispanic Changemaker that I look forward to, actually looked up to, Jorge Ramos. He's the news anchor for Univisión Network. Not many people like him. Not many people like his style now because they think that he editorializes. I respect that. However, I do think he's a great journalist. I wanted to be him, and I'll tell you why. Because even though you're a news anchor and people see us here sitting behind the podium and giving the news, what I liked about this guy was that he had the ability to roll up the sleeves and go out where the story was and talk to people and interview them and ask them why. Because I always thought that being a journalist, the important thing is whenever people say or do something, ask them why. Why do they do it? And I thought that that was something admirable of Jorge Ramos. To me, he's my Hispanic heritage, he's my Hispanic Changemaker. And I think we all have our very own with whatever career, degree, or plan that you have in your life. You have that person that you look up to and continue doing so. And one of the things that I want to tell you, because since I mentioned Jorge Ramos and some people criticize him, when we have someone that we look up to, we don't have to copy everything that they do. But we can have the ability to grab what we think is good, what we've learned from them, and apply it in our lives and make us better people. Today, we are going to recognize students that have actually talked about Hispanic Changemakers. And in the Hispanic Changemakers, we have someone who has looked up, who will talk about a girl, a 10-year-old girl who became a Hispanic Changemaker. That is admirable. We will also talk about we will hear about someone's grandfather. I totally identify with that. I told you about my dad. And we will also hear about someone who I think is a doctor that they listen to.
Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Oh, Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. There you go. So we will hear about that. And remember, the one thing that is important is we grab what we think we can learn from those people and apply it in our lives. Now, I want to end up saying this. And going back to Jorge Ramos, I read a couple of his books, and there was one interesting book where he said that the world is full of teachers who wanted to be lawyers, doctors who wanted to be astronauts, lawyers who wanted to be something else. He says in that, I am a broadcast journalist who's doing what I like and what I want. And the message on that is do what you like. Do what you want. Because you're going to spend a great deal a great part of your life working. Make sure you like what you're doing, because you will make money and you will be happy. Thank you for your time. Thank you for inviting me to be here. I must say that if anybody has any questions, but I think that we don't have too much time. However, once again, thank you to Miami Dade College, the institution who invited me, and thank you definitely to you for asking me to come here and be with this great number of students, okay?
Yvonne, this is for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor, for such a wonderful and motivational keynote address. I am definitely the professor that would not be a lawyer. I would like to call Professor Mise to join me in calling to the podium our winning students to read their entries and receive their prizes. And I'll let Professor Mise start.
Yes. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I want to start by calling our third place winner, Ashley Gonzales, who wrote about her grandfather.
Good morning. Okay, so the title of my poem is Juan Gomez, El Hombre de Guanajay. I convey this story like a novela that airs on Telemundo, or even as a Cannes Film Festival premiere movie directed by Alejandro Gonzales Inarritu entitled Juan Gomez, El Hombre de Guanajay. To occupy the spirit of the Guajiro from the boondocks of Guanajay, Cuba, Oscar Isaac would be the likely option. His captivating energy could honestly parallel the struggle of a man whose country now groaned the monotonous tune of communism rather than that of La Valla Mesas. As an underdog, Juan must secure a balsa, gather his paraphernalia, pride, progeny, and paramour, and sweep away from the clammed pearl of the Caribbean. He invokes La Virgen de Caridad to protect him on the excursion and ruminates on the morrow, until Castro's castrated cohorts barricade his boat. The peddler who vended Juan the SS Freedom rise into his antagonistic form by slithering out the secret in exchange for silver. The libertine's allies reenact a quick merengue routine by shuffling him, his fruitful wife, and his toddler into the Bastille. For 19 months, he gets treated like an overworked, malnourished, and unhygienic mule, ridden by men who shampooed their intellect with strawberry-scented bluffs of collectivism. He manifests his Pan-American departure, and the universe grants him and his family the chance to fire a cracker out of their combusting reality on Independence Day 1967. As the saga prepares to launch the end credits, torn and yellowed sepia Polaroids of the Gomez clan at the Jersey Shore engross screen, alongside images of his sewing factory, the cream-colored house in the middle of Hialeah, and of his daughter's quinceañera. Juan Gomez lived a life one could easily crunch onto a typewriter and convert into an Academy Award-winning screenplay, and in this fantasy film, he would be the iconic role model. But each time I sit on the tattered beige recliner he would plop himself onto, I remember a distinct version of this warrior. I recall the viejito who was settled down on his chair, concentrating on Radio Mambi as the Florida Marlins approached the 9th inning. I see the man who beams as I bolted to his side after an endless day at school. I reminisce on the man who taught me a trick to wake up my sleepy legs and invented a method to scrape his dingy furniture clean with coarse Cuban bread. That was my abuelo, Hialeah's hidden heroic archetype.
We would like to call Ms. Patty Piloto, our Pearson Education sponsor and representative, to award Ashley with her winning prize today.
Congratulations. Thank you. Do I go over there?
Our second place winner is Raynard Jones, and is Raynard here? No. Raynard is from Professor Orro's Spanish class. And I'll be reading his entry. Rainer couldn't make it today, so I'll read his entry. Sonia Sotomayor is a great example of a Hispanic who people of any race, financial background can learn and grow from. She was born in the Bronx borough of New York and is the elder of siblings. Her family is of Puerto Rican descent. Her mother worked as a nurse and her father was a tool and die worker. Sotomayor graduated from Cardinal Spellman High School in 1972 and started going to Princeton University. She always stayed connected with her roots and became involved in Puerto Rican groups on campus. She graduated summa cum laude from Princeton in 1976. She also received the Pine Prize, the highest academic award given at Princeton. Sotomayor received her law degree from Yale in 1979, passing the bar the following year. She worked as a district attorney for a few years before moving into private practice, where she specialized in intellectual property. She became a partner of the firm and also served on the board of the Puerto Rican Legal Defense and Education Fund. On May 26, 2009, President Obama nominated her to the as a Supreme Court justice. Her resume served her well, as she was the youngest judge to be appointed to the U.S. District Courts in 1992. Sotomayor was nominated by President Bill Clinton for the U.S. Second Circuit Court of Appeals in 1997. Sotomayor became the first Latina Supreme Court justice in U.S. history. She is already on the right side of history on being one of the 6 justices that voted to uphold the Affordable Care Act. Through her hard work and dedication, she has shown that anyone can do anything as long as you are willing to do the work. From her being the youngest circuit judge to the first Latina on the Supreme Court, she continues to break barriers for everyone. And we'll give Reynard his prize. Professor Nisa.
Thank you. And it is my pleasure to announce our first place winner. And she wrote about a young child activist who is carrying the future promise of undocumented immigrants, which show that it doesn't matter your age, that you can still do something regardless of time and place. Join me in welcoming Yonsuk Coco Valladares.
Good morning. Thank you for this honor. It means more to me than you know. First, I'll read the poem, and then I will give you a little background about Sophie Cruz. When I was 5, I asked the Pope, "Please, will you help us? My mom and dad have no status or hope. I fear they will separate us. 'Cause deep in my heart, I know that families should be together. And deep in my heart, I know that people should be given a chance. My father is picking the melons now. He starts at the break of day. After he finishes picking them all, will they send him away? I hope there are too many melons to pick today. So I march for the people who seek a better life. I speak for the unlucky ones who weren't able to come to America when the natives let anybody come. When I was 6, Obama asked me, come to the White House for tea. My mom and dad had to wait outside because they're not legal, you see. But deep in his heart, he knows that families should be kept together. And deep in his heart, he knows that people just want a chance. My father is picking the berries now. He stops when there's no more light. After he finishes picking them all, will this be his last night? Without him, my future isn't bright. So I march for the people who seek a better life. I speak for the unlucky ones who weren't able to come to America when the natives let anybody come. Now I am 7. I ask of you, do you wonder what you should do? Protect our families with a chain of love. We want to be here too. 'Cause deep in your heart you know that families should be together. And deep in your heart you know that you can give people a chance. The border is a scary line that I can't even see. Whichever side I'm standing on, I just want to be free. So Sophie Cruz came into the spotlight in 2015 when she slipped through a police line and handed Pope Francis a handwritten letter during his motorcade through the streets of Washington, D.C. When the Pope's car passed by, Sophie ran out into the street to see him, but was turned away by security. However, the Pope had seen her run out from the crowd and requested to meet her. He hugged her, and she left him her letter. She wanted the pontiff to learn about the plight of the 9 million people in mixed immigration status families in the U.S. The next day, Pope Francis addressed the issue at a joint meeting of the United States Congress, encouraging greater openness for immigrants and refugees. Sophie has crusaded for DAPA ever since. And for those who don't know what DAPA is, it's Deferred Action for Parents of Americans and Lawful Permanent Residents. It's a poignant subject at this time, as we know that thousands are marching towards the Mexican-U.S. border. In May 2016, Cruz was invited to visit President Barack Obama at the White House for a Cinco de Mayo celebration. Because her parents were undocumented, they were not able to attend the White House, and instead, Sophie was accompanied by Alida Garcia from FWD.US, a lobbyist from a group advocating for immigration reform, and filmmaker Paula Mendoza, who directed a short video, Free Like the Birds, starring Sophie and her family that debuted in the Tribeca Film Festival. Sophie appeared in the video 11 Million Stories, which discussed the potential implications of national mass deportation and how children like her with undocumented parents face certain obstacles. In October of 2016, Sophie put pressure on the most powerful politicians in the world by submitting a question for the presidential debate. The question was, if you deport my parents, what happens to me? Which reignited the conversation about the future of mixed-status families in this country. Sophie continued to spread her message, speaking at the 2017 Women's March alongside the likes of Gloria Steinem, Alicia Keys, Ashley Judd, and Madonna. And in 2018, her likeness was revealed as part of a mural entitled Sophie Holding the World Together by Miles McGregor at the Children's Discovery Museum of San Jose. It is a really hopeful image about what our future can be. She is a girl, she's young, and she is a future Hispanic changemaker.
Ms. Piloto, if you can give Coco her winning prize, and that was an excellent poem.
Thank you.
Before I call to the podium Professor Hannah Sank again for a special presentation and closing remarks, I would like to take this opportunity again to thank everyone involved in today's event. Our judges, peers in education, our campus administration, I see Dean Peña back there, our English and world languages departments, our participating students, media services, campus services, Mr. Tony Leal, who is videotaping us, and many thanks to Yvonne Taylor for accepting our invitation as a guest speaker. And again, I would like Professor Hannah Sank to join me here at the podium.
So now do you see what I meant when I said this is really one of the very special events for this year? And let's give another round of applause to our speaker, our keynote speaker, and also to our student winners. And Mr. Taylor, if you would join us here at the podium, please. We really so appreciate your coming here and spending this time with us and with sharing your stories with us as our students do each year. And as a token of appreciation, we would like to present this plaque.
Wow.
And the plaque says, Hispanic Heritage Month, Hispanic Changemakers, Past, Present, and Future, presented to Yvonne Taylor, news anchor and reporter, Univisión-23, in appreciation of your outstanding leadership in journalism and service to the South Florida community. Department of World Languages and English and Communications, October 24th, 2018.
Thank you.
Oh.
I think we need to step out for the picture. Right here. Thank you.
Is there anything that you would like to say? Perhaps someone does have a question. We do have a few minutes.
I just want to say thank you. I mean, this is so uplifting. I always said that when I got into this industry for broadcast journalism, it's awesome to get recognition, to get prizes. That's not the reason why I did it. That's not the reason why I think many of our colleagues did it. When I got into broadcast journalism, that was like actually when I decided was in the 1990s. At the time, they were talking about immigration was a huge subject, and a law called NACARA was in discussions, which would enable Nicaraguans and Cubans to get kind of like a special status because of their conditions of running away from their country. And it used to catch my attention that I never saw anybody who was Nicaraguan doing stories, and that's when I felt that that was my calling. And I wanted to give a face to the thousands or many people who are actually seeking some sort of benefit. And I think that's the reality today in broadcast journalism, and I would say in just about any field that we pursue into it. So, like I said before, make sure you do what you like. Make sure you do, and you go to school, no matter what anybody tells you, if that is what you like, do it, because you will make money and you will be happy. Thank you. They asked me if anybody had any questions. I don't know if anybody has a question. Okay, no questions, easy.
Thank you again for coming. Okay. This concludes our awards assembly.